Very good. Why do you think football has taken on so long to catch on in the USA? Why do you think football has taken so long to catch on in the USA? I think football
I think
has taken so
football has
long
taken so
to
long
catch on
to
in the
catch on
USA
in the
because
USA because USA uh, is much is much popular.
in
No, sorry.
USA has much more
USA has much
more
more popular
popular
sports
sports like
like basketball and
NBA, American football,
NBA, yeah, American football,
and
yeah,
baseball, right? Okay,
baseball.
very good. Okay, give me an example of the word bewildered. Give me an example of the word bewildered, please. I knew the
I knew
groom had
the
hired a
groom
suit,
had hired a
so
suit,
I was totally
so I was
bewildered
totally
when
bewildered
he turned up
when
to
he
the
turned up
wedding
to the
wearing
wedding
jeans and a
wearing
t-shirt.
jeans and a t-shirt.
Very good. If you shone a torch in my eyes, would you dazzle me? If you shone a
If you
torch in
show
my
a
eyes,
torch
would
in
you
your
dazzle
eyes,
me? Yes, if I
yes.
shone a
If I
torch
show,
in your
sorry,
eyes.
if
Yes,
I
if I shone a torch
if I show a torch
in your eyes,
in your eyes,
I would dazzle you.
I would dazzle you.
Very good. One more. Yes, if I
Yes,
shone a
if I
torch
show
in
a
your
torch
eyes,
in your
I
eyes,
would dazzle
I
you.
would dazzle you.
Very good. And what would I mean if I said I was dazzled by a musician's performance? And what would I mean if I said I was dazzled by a musician's performance? If you said
If
you
you
were
said
dazzled
you were
by a
dazzled by
musician's
a
performance,
musician's
you'd
performance,
mean you
you'd
were
mean
very
you were
impressed
very
by a
impressed
musician's
by a
performance.
musician's performances.
Very good. Do people from the north of Europe tend to have a fairer complexion than those from the south?
Those from the
Do
south,
people from the north of Europe tend to have a fairer complexion than those from the south? Yes.
yes,
People from the north
people
of Europe
from the north of Europe
tend to have a
tend to
fairer
have a
complexion
fairer
than
complexion
those from the
than
south.
those from the south.
Is a poor complexion sometimes the result of inadequate nutrition? Is a poor complexion sometimes the result of inadequate nutrition? Yes, a
Yes,
poor complexion
a poor
is
complexion
sometimes the
is
result
sometimes the
of
result
inadequate
of
nutrition.
inadequate nutrition.
Very good. Okay, let me just scroll down. Okay, here we go. How can we sometimes reduce the length of a relative clause that contains the verb be?
Okay, the verb
How
be.
can we sometimes reduce the length of a relative clause that contains the verb be? We can sometimes
We can
reduce
sometimes
the length
reduce
of
the
a
length
relative
of
clause
a relative
that
clause
contains the
that
verb be
contains the verb
by
be
omitting the
by
relative
omitting the
pronoun
relative
and the
pronoun
verb be.
and the verb be.
What's the first common situation in which we can do this? What's the first common situation in which we can do this? The first common
The first common
situation in
situations
which we
in
can do
which we
this
can do
is
this
when the main
is
verb
when the main verb
in the relative clause
in the relative
is
clause
the continuous
is the
form.
continuous form.
Well, one more. The first
Okay.
common
The first
situation
common
in which
situations
we can do
in which
this
we can
is
do
when the
this
main
is
verb
when the main
is
verb
is
is
in the relative clause
in the relative
is
clause
in the continuous form.
is in the continuous form.
Very good. So what can we say instead of the children that are going on the trip tomorrow are very happy? So what can we say instead of the children that are going on a trip
That
tomorrow
are
are very happy?
are happy.
Instead of the
Instead of
children that are going
the children that are
on
going
the trip
on
tomorrow
the
are
trip
very
tomorrow
happy,
are very
we can
happy.
say the
We can say
children
the
going
children
on the trip
going on
tomorrow
the trip tomorrow
are very happy.
are very happy.
Very good. Okay. What's the second common situation in which we can reduce a relative clause? What's
Clause.
the second common situation in which we
Situation
can
in which
reduce a
we can
relative
reduce the
clause?
relative clause.
The second
The
common
second common
situation in
situations
which we
in
can
which we
reduce
can
a
reduce
relative
the
clause
relative
is
clause
when the main
is
verb
when the
in the
main verb
relative
in
clause
the relative
is in the
clause
passive
is
voice.
in the passive voice.
Right. So what can we say instead of you get a discount on any purchases that are made before the end of the month? So what can we say instead of you get a discount on
You
any
get a
purchases
discount
that
on
are
any
made before
purchases
the end
that
of
are
the
made
month? Instead of you
instead
get a
of
discount
you get
on
a
any
discount on
purchases
any
that
purchases
are made
that are
before
made
the end of the
before
month.
the end of the
We can
month.
say
We
you
can
get a
say
discount
you get a
on
discount
any
on any
purchases
purchases
made before
made
the end
before
of the month.
the end of the month.
Regan, what's the third common situation in which we can reduce a relative clause? What's the third common situation in which we can reduce a relative clause? The third
The
common
third common
situation in
situation
which
in
we
which
can
we can
reduce a
reduce
relative clause
a relative
is
clause
when the relative
is when the
pronoun
relative
and the
pronoun
verb be
and the verb
are
be
followed by a
are followed by
prepositional
a
phrase.
prepositional phrase.
Very good. So what can we say instead of I'll do everything that is within my power to
Within
solve
my
the
power
problem?
to solve the problem.
So what can we say instead of I'll do everything that is within my power to solve the problem?
To solve the problem.
Instead of I'll
Instead
do
of
everything
I'll
that
do
is
everything
within my power
that is within my
to
power
solve the problem,
to solve the
we can
problem.
say
We
I'll
can
do
say
everything
I'll do
within my
everything
power
within my
to
power
solve the problem.
to solve the problem.
Very good. Would we choose to reduce the relative clause in the following sentence? My mother, who is taking piano lessons now, clearly has no talent. Would we choose to reduce the relative clause in the following sentence? My mother, who is taking piano
Who is
lessons
taking piano
now,
lesson now
clearly has no talent.
clearly has no
No,
talent.
we
No,
wouldn't choose
we
to
wouldn't choose
reduce the
to
relative
reduce
clause
the relative
in the
clause
following
in the
sentence.
following
My
sentence.
mother, who
My
is
mother,
taking
who
piano
is taking
lessons
piano
now,
lessons now,
clearly has no talent.
clearly has no talent
Why not? Why not? Because we
because
normally
we
reduce
normally reduce
defining rather
defining
than
rather than
non-defining relative clause.
undefining relative clause.
Very good. Okay. In the sentence, the picture that John is painting looks great.
Painting.
Why can we not reduce the relative clause by omitting the verb be?
Which is about B.
In the sentence, the picture that John is painting looks great. Why can we not reduce the relative clause by omitting the verb be?
B.
In the sentence,
In the
the
sentence,
picture that
the
John
picture
is
that
painting
John is
looks
painting
great.
looks
We cannot
great. We
reduce
cannot
the
reduce
relative clause
the
by
relative clause
omitting the
by
verb
omitting
be
the verb be
because the subject in
because
the
the
relative
subject
clause
in the
is the
relative
word
clause
John,
is the word
and
John,
we can only
and we
omit
can
the
only
verb
omit
be
the verb
when the
be
relative
when the
pronoun
relative
is the subject.
pronoun is the subject.
Very good. Name me an invention in history that brought about a radical change in the way people live their lives. Name me an invention in history that brought about a radical change in the way people live their lives, please. The name of
The
an
name
invention
of
in
an
history
invention in
that brought
history
about a
that brought
radical
about
change
radical
in the
change
way
in
people
the way
live their
people
lives
live their
is
lives
the
is electricity.
very good. If you tried your hand at a traditional craft such as furniture making, do you
Furniture
think you'd
making,
be any good at it?
maybe any good at
If
it.
you tried your hand at a
Try my
traditional
hand at
craft such as furniture making,
furniture
do you
making.
think you'd be any good at it?
Maybe
Yes or no?
no.
If I tried my
If I
hand
tried my
at a
hand
traditional
at a
craft
traditional
such
craft
as furniture
such as
making,
furniture
I
making,
don't think I'd
I
be
don't
any
think
good at it.
I'd be any good at it.
Very good. Do the prices in shops soar when inflation in the country is very high?
Countries
Do the
high.
prices in shops soar when inflation in the country is very high? Yes, the
Yes,
prices in
the
shops
prices
soar
in shops
when
soar
inflation
when
in a
inflation
country is
in a
very
country
high.
is very high.
Very good. Okay. What can we feel our blood doing when we put our finger on our pulse?
On our
What can
pulse.
we feel our blood doing when we put our finger on our pulse? We can feel
We can
our
feel
blood throbbing
our blood
through
throbbing
our
through
veins
our
when
veins
we put our
when we
finger
put our
on
fingers
our pulse.
on our on our
On our pulse.
okay, on our pulse.
Very good. One more. We can
Okay,
feel
we can
our
feel
blood throbbing
our blood throbbing
through our veins
through our veins
when we put our
when we put
finger
our
on our
finger
pulse.
on our pulse.
Very good. Okay, and that's the end of our revision. Let's have
Oh,
new work.
okay, okay.
Okay, so repeat. Rehearse.
Rehearse,
Rehearsal.
rehearsal,
Run through.
run through.
Very good. Okay, listen. Rehearse is a verb. It means to practice a play, a song,
Play
or
a
a
song,
performance, etc.
performance, etc.
For example, if I had to make a speech in
Make a
public, I'd
speech in
surely
public.
rehearse
I shall
beforehand.
rehearse beforehand.
Rehearsal is the noun of the verb rehearse. It's a
Rehearse.
practice or trial
Practice.
performance of
Trial
a play,
performance
song,
of a
speech,
play,
etc.
song, speech, etc.
For example, I think a 2 month long rehearsal is enough for
Rehearsal
a 1 hour
is enough
stage
for
play.
1 hour stage play.
Run through is a phrasal verb. It means to perform a series of scenes
Serious
in a
scene
play,
in
stage
a play.
presentations, etc., especially as a rehearsal before
The
the actual
rehearsal before
performance.
the actual
For
performance.
example, in a dress rehearsal, the actors run through the entire
Run through
performance
the
in their
entire performance
costumes.
in their costumes.
Let's practice. If you had to make a speech at a wedding, would you rehearse it beforehand? If you had to make a speech at a wedding, would you rehearse it beforehand? Yes or no?
Yes.
If I had to make a
If I had
speech
to
at a
make a
wedding,
speech at
I'd
the
rehearse it
wedding, I'd
beforehand.
rehearse it beforehand.
Very good. What do we call a rehearsal for a play in which the actors run through the entire
Rehearse with the
performance in their
entire performance
costumes?
in the
What do
costume.
we call a rehearsal for a play in which the actors run through the entire performance in their
Entire performance
costumes?
in the
We
costume.
call a
We
rehearsal
call a
for a
rehearsal
play in
for a
which the
play in
actors
which
run
the
through
actors
the
run through
entire
the
performance
entire
in their
performance
costumes,
in their
a dress
costume.
rehearsal.
A dress rehearsal.
Very good. Next, repeat ongoing.
Ongoing.
I'm sorry, outgoing.
Okay. Outgoing.
Very good. Mingle.
Mingle.
Very good. Okay, listen, outgoing is an adjective. It means having a friendly or
Having a
confident
friendly,
character,
confident
especially
character.
when around others. For example, outgoing people enjoy meeting people and having new friends.
Having new friends.
Mingle is a verb. It means to join in a conversation,
Join a
group
conversation.
of
Group.
people, etc. For
Etc.
example, people tend to mingle more at
Mingle
parties
more
if they're
at
naturally
parties if they're
outgoing.
naturally outgoing.
Let's practice. Do
Okay.
people tend to mingle more at parties if they're naturally outgoing?
Outgoing.
Do people tend to mingle more at parties if they're naturally outgoing? Yes,
Yes,
people tend to mingle
people tend
more
to
at
mingle more
parties
at the
if they're
parties
naturally
if they are
outgoing.
naturally outgoing.
Very good. Next, repeat. Good.
Good.
Frantic.
Frantic.
Very good. Okay, listen. Good is an adjective.
Adjective.
It could mean at least or more than, or
More than,
more or less.
more
For
or
example,
less.
if I told you I live a good 45 minutes from here,
45 minutes from
I'd
here.
mean that it took
I
me
mean
at
that
least 45
it
minutes to
took
get home from here
get
and
home
probably
from
more than 45 minutes.
more than 45
The
minutes.
phrase in good time means early or allowing more than enough time for
More than
something
enough
to
time
happen.
for
For
something to
example,
happen.
when traveling, I do my packing in a
I
good
do my
time.
packing in a good time.
Frantic is an adjective. It means in a hurried or
In a
chaotic
hurry.
way.
Well,
For
in
example,
a
not
hurry.
packing in good time when traveling could make a
Packing
person
to make a
shove
person
everything
shove
frantically into
everything
a suitcase
frantically into a
at the
suitcase
last minute.
at the last minute.
Let's practice.
Okay.
If I told you I live a good 45 minutes from here, what would I mean?
Yeah. What would I
If
mean?
I told you I live a good 45 minutes from here, what would I mean? If you told me
If you
you
told
live
me
a good
you live
45
a good
minutes from here,
45 minutes from
you'd
here,
mean that
it
it
means
took
that
you at
it
least
took you at least
45 minutes to go
45
home
minutes to go
from
home
here and
from here
probably
and
more than
probably
45
more
minutes.
than 45 minutes.
Very good. When traveling, do you do all the packing in good time or do you shove everything frantically into a suitcase at the last minute? When traveling, do you do all the packing in good time or do you shove everything frantically into a suitcase at the last minute? When traveling,
When traveling,
I
I do
all the packing
all the
in
packing
good time.
in good time.
I don't shove
I don't
everything
shove
frantically
everything frantically
in a suitcase at
in a
the last
suitcase
minute.
at the last minute.
Very good. Next, repeat insight.
Inside.
Very good. Okay, listen. Insight is a noun. It is a deep understanding of a person or thing.
Person
For
is
example, the British Museum in England provides the best insight
provide the
into
best
the British
insight into
history.
the British
It
history.
provides a deep understanding of the British history.
British
Let's
history.
practice. Which museum in your country would you say provided the best insight into the nation's history? Which museum in your country would you say provided the best insight into the nation's history? I'd say the
I do
museum in my
say the
country
museum in my
that
country
provided the
that
best insight
provided the best
into the
insight
nation's
into the
history
nation's
was
history was the Hiroshima Peace Park
museum.
Hiroshima Peace Park Museum. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Next, repeat. Perk.
Park.
Very good. Okay, one more. Perk.
Park.
Caffeine.
Caffeine.
Childcare.
Childcare.
Healthcare.
Healthcare.
Very good. Okay, listen. Childcare is a noun.
Is a
It is
noun.
the care for children by
Care for
parents,
children by
babysitter,
parents,
etc.
babysitter, etc.
For example, childcare expense is
Childcare
high when
expenses
one has
high
many
for
children.
one Any children.
Healthcare is a noun. It means save money or benefit
Save
from a
money or
company for a
benefit from
person's
a
health.
company or person's
For
health.
example, most people nowadays save more for their
Save
family
more for
healthcare.
their family healthcare.
Perk can be a noun and a verb. As a noun, it means a special benefit given to
Benefit
employees. For
given to
example,
employees.
some common perks that companies offer employees are free
Offer employees
childcare,
free
healthcare,
childcare,
gym membership,
healthcare, gym
etc.
membership, etc.
As a perk, as a verb, perk means to become lively and more
Become more
energetic.
lively and more
For
energetic.
example, many people drink
Many
coffee to
people
perk
drink
themselves
coffee
up in the
up
morning.
themselves up in the morning.
Caffeine is a noun. It
Caffeine
is
is
a
a
substance found in
substance
coffee,
found
which
in
makes
coffee
people feel
that
more
makes people
energetic.
feel more energetic.
Let's practice. Why do many people drink coffee to perk themselves up in the
Pumped
morning?
up in the
Why
morning.
do many people drink
People
coffee to perk
drink
themselves
coffee
up
to
in the
perk them up
morning?
in the morning.
Many people
Many
drink
people
coffee to
drink
perk
coffee
themselves
to
up
perk themselves up
in the morning
in the
because
morning
it
because
contains a
it
lot of
contains a
caffeine.
lot of caffeine.
Very good. Okay, tell me some common perks that companies offer employees. Tell me some common perks that companies offer employees, please. Some common
Some
perks
common
that
perks
companies
that the
offer
companies
employees
offer
are
employees
free childcare,
are free childcare,
healthcare, gym
healthcare,
membership,
team membership,
etc.
etc.
Very good. Next, repeat grudge.
Grudge,
Very good. Okay, one more. Grudge.
grudge,
Very good. Okay, listen.
grudge.
Grudge is a noun. It is a bad feeling or hate
Bad feeling or
one
hate.
feels against another
One feeling
person.
against
It's a
the
hate. For
against
example,
hate, hate.
someone might bear a grudge against
Bear
another
grudge
person,
against another
either
person.
because they resent something
They
the
resent
person has
something
done in
the
the
person has
past,
done in the
or
past,
just because they are
or just
envious of
because they
them.
are envious of them.
Let's practice. For what reason might someone bear a grudge against another person? For what reason might someone bear a grudge against another person? Someone might bear a
Someone might
grudge
bear a
against
grudge
another person
against another
either
person
because they
either
resent
because
something
they resent
the
something
person has
the
done
person
in the
has
past,
done in the
or
past,
just because
or just
they are
because
envious of
they
them.
are envious of them.
Very good. Let's repeat. Smear.
Smear.
Very good. Okay, listen. Smear is a verb. It means to spread something, oily or
Something.
wet over something.
Well,
For
something.
example, I'm pretending to smear something over my
Smear something
face.
over my face.
Okay, let's practice. What am I pretending to do? What am I pretending to do? You're
You
pretending to
are
smear
pretending to
something
smear
over your
something
face.
over your face.
Very good. Let's repeat. Bystander.
Bystander.
Very good. Okay, listen. The difference between a bystander and a
Bystander
spectator is
and a
that a
spectator is that
bystander is usually
bystander
someone
is usually
who
someone
witnesses an event
who
by
witnesses an
chance,
event by
like a
chance,
fight in the street or an
like a fight
accident,
in
for
the street
example.
or accident.
A spectator, on the other hand, is
Spectator,
usually
on the other hand,
someone
is usually
who has
someone
deliberately
who
gone to
has
see an event,
deliberately gone to
like
see
a
an
boxing
event,
match, a
like a
soccer
boxing
match, for
match, a
example.
soccer match, for example.
Let's practice. What's the difference between a bystander and a spectator? What's the difference between a
The
bystander and a
bystander and
spectator?
spectator.
The difference
The
between
difference
a
between a
bystander and a
bystander and a
spectator is
spectator
that a
is that a
bystander is
bystander
usually
is
someone
usually
who
someone
witnesses an
who
event
witnesses
by
an event
chance,
by
a
chance,
fight in the street,
a
for
fight in the
example.
street, for
A
example.
spectator, on
A
the other
spectator,
hand,
on
is
the other
usually
hand, is
someone
usually
who has
someone who
deliberately
has
gone to
deliberately
see an event,
gone to see an
a
event,
boxing match, for
a boxing
example.
match, for example.
Very let's repeat motive.
Motive.
Very listen, motive is a noun. It is something that causes a
Something
person to
causes a
act
person
in a
to
certain
act
way
in a
or
certain
do a
way
certain thing.
or do a certain
For
things.
example, his motive of starting to act in a much
Starting to
friendlier
act
manner
in a
with
much
me
friendlier
is that
manner with me
he needs
is
me
that
to help
he
him on
needs me to
something.
help him on something.
Let's practice. Would you become suspicious of a work colleague's motive if they suddenly
Motive
started acting
suddenly
in a much
started
friendlier
acting in
manner
a much
with you than
friendlier manner
usual?
with you than
Would you
usual.
become suspicious of a work colleague's motive if they suddenly
Motive
started
they have
acting
started
in a much
acting
friendlier
in a
manner
much
with you than
friendlier manner
usual?
with you than
Yes or
usual.
no?
Yes,
I'd become
I
suspicious
become
of a
suspicious
work
of
colleague's
work
motives
colleagues'
if
motives
they suddenly started
if they suddenly started
acted in a much
acted
friendlier
in a much
manner
friendlier
with
manner
me than usual.
with
With
friendly
me
manner
than usual.
with me than usual.
Very good. One more.
Okay.
Yes. I'd
Yes,
become
I'd
suspicious
become
of a
suspicious
work
of
colleague's
work
motives
colleagues'
if they
motives
suddenly
if they
started
suddenly
acting
started
in a much
acting in
friendlier
a much
manner
friendlier
with
manner
me than
with
usual.
me than usual.
Very good. Next, repeat. Withstand.
Withstand.
Very good. Okay, listen. Withstand is a verb. It means to remain unaffected
Okay.
or undamaged or to remain standing.
To remain standing. Remain
For
standing.
example, a hut that
Yes.
cannot withstand a storm gets blown to pieces or
Gets blown
falls
to
to
pieces.
pieces.
Falls to pieces.
Let's practice. What happens to a hut that cannot withstand a storm? What happens to a hut that cannot withstand a storm? A hut that cannot, a
Okay.
hut
A
that
hut.
cannot withstand a storm.
A hut. Sorry. Say it again.
A hut that
A
cannot
hut that
withstand a
cannot
storm
withstand a
gets
storm
blown to
gets
pieces
blown to
or
pieces
falls to pieces.
or falls to pieces.
Very good. Okay, one more. The question. What happens to a hut
But
that cannot
to a
withstand
hut
a
that
storm?
cannot withstand a
What
storm,
happens to a hut that
the hut
cannot
that
withstand a
cannot
storm?
withstand
A
a
hut
storm,
that
a hut
cannot
that
withstand a
cannot
storm
withstand a
gets
storm
blown to
gets
pieces
blown to
or
pieces
falls to
or
pieces.
fall to pieces.
Very good. Okay, next repeat. Come off.
Come off,
Fall through.
fall through.
Very good. Okay, listen. Come off is a phrasal
Come off
verb.
is first
It
of
means
all
to succeed or to become
succeed,
successful.
to
Come
be
off.
successful. Come
For
off.
example, an optimistic person is more likely
As
to expect
more
their
likely
plans
to
to come
expect
off.
that come off,
Fall through is the opposite of come off. It means
come
to
off,
fail. For
to fail,
example, not planning well could make a project fall
to make a
through.
project fall through.
Let's practice. Is an optimistic person more likely to expect their plans to come off or fall through? Is an optimistic person more likely to expect their plans to come off or fall through? An optimistic
An
person
opposite,
is
an
more
opposite,
an optimistic person
an optimistic
is
person
more likely
is
to
more
expect
likely
their
to
plans
expect the
to come
plans
off.
to come off.
Very good. Next, repeat conscientious.
Consensus.
Very good. Okay, listen. Conscientious is an adjective. It means
Adjective.
serious about your work
Serious
and
about
putting a
your
lot
work,
of effort
putting a
into
lot of
doing it
effort
in a
into
careful
doing it
way.
in a careful way.
For example, I'd say I was a conscientious student at secondary
Consensus student
school.
at
Not
secondary
really.
school.
Let's practice. Were you a conscientious student at secondary school? Were you a conscientious student at secondary school? Yes or no?
No,
I wasn't a
I
conscientious
wasn't a
student
consensus
at
student
secondary
at
school.
secondary school.
Very good. Next, repeat enterprise.
Enterprise.
Sector.
Sector.
Very good. Okay, listen. Enterprise is a noun. It is an organization for business or a
Organization for
business
business
company.
or business
For
company.
example, there are businesses which are run by the
Which
state
are
and
run by
there
the
are
state,
run by the
there
private
are run by the
enterprises.
private enterprises.
Sector is a noun. It is a group formed in a society. For example,
Society.
the government sector, private
The
sector,
government,
etc.
private sector, etc.
Education in my country is
Education in
provided by
countries
both
is
the government
provided
and
by
the
both the
private
government and
sector.
private sector.
Let's practice. Do you believe in private enterprises or do you believe everything should be owned and run by the state? Do you believe in private enterprises or do you believe everything should be owned and run by the state? I believe
I believe
in private sector
in
or everything should
yeah,
be run by the state.
I believe in private sector. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Next one more. Yes, I believe
Yes,
in
I
private
believe in
enterprises.
in I
Private
believe in
enterprises
private
and
enterprises,
not everything
and not
should be
everything
owned and
should
run
be
by the
owned
state.
and run by the state.
Is education in your country
Is
provided mainly by the private sector? Is
okay.
education in your country provided mainly by the private sector? Yes or no?
No.
Education in my
Education
country
in my
isn't
country
provided
isn't
mainly
provided
by the
mainly
private
by the
sector.
private sector.
Very good.